All right, welcome in to the only day after Patriots podcast covering Cutdown Day on Wednesday, August 27th, here on the Pats Interference Podcast, a part of the esteemed, eloquent, and effervescent CLNS Media Network. Thank you for hanging out. I want to apologize to the folks who've been waiting for this episode, which was delayed for one big reason. Number one, the incoming waiver claims. And honestly, I'm glad that I did wait because pack your bags, Kendrick Bourne. So long, Javon Baker, but stick around because you're probably on the practice squad. And welcome Tommy DeVito and Rams corner Charles Woods, who's probably not going to be mentioned for the rest of the podcast because we have bigger things to talk about. And the bigger things start with Bourne because yesterday the takeaway naturally was 8 wide receivers. How could the Patriots keep 8 wide receivers? Oh my God. Well, they don't need more. They have 6. And it's Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Keyshawn Boutte, Matt Collins, Kyle Williams, and Efton Chisholm back at practice today, by the way. Christian Gonzalez is the only one missing. So the Patriots did what we expected. They added a little bit from waivers, trying to fortify some positions. They got a corner. They got a quarterback. Mike Vrabel confirmed that here today. The release is officially out. But I want to start by zooming out because the context of all of this, before we get into later a conversation with Tommy Curran about the state of the Patriots and a little peek ahead to week 1, is when you're at this point in a rebuild, what I would call year 1.5 for the Patriots, but it's obviously year 1 for Vrabel. New regimes are forced to keep players that they don't love and sometimes just really don't want. And the Pats cut bait with a lot of them yesterday. Cole Strange was no surprise if you've been listening to the show. Marcus Epps was another. Del Pettis stays instead of him because the tie goes to the young guy. But you do keep players who are either not scheme fits or have iffy contracts or might have, whatever injury history because you have no better options. And among the players they got stuck with, to be unkind about this, were Kyle Duggar and Anthony Jennings. But as I reported last week, they did try. They also tried to trade Kendrick Bourne. And this news broke just after, it was like 12:15 this afternoon. And Bourne got his release. Vrabel, since then, has denied that he requested a release and got it. My understanding of this from both sides is that both sides ultimately got what they wanted. So whether Kendrick Bourne sat down and said, I want to be released right now, and the Patriots granted his wish, or ultimately he can go wherever he wants now, doesn't matter. They both got what they wanted. And the context for this, though, is the reason Bourne got what he wanted is because his understanding late last night was that he was probably going to Minnesota. And he understood that he was probably going to go for a late round pick, but those trade talks fell apart because you'll know Minnesota earlier today, instead of trading for Kendrick Bourne, got another receiver. That receiver was Adam Thielen. And this was after several days of reported on-again, off-again trade talks that ended with a deal Wednesday morning. Thielen, of course, played for the Vikings, so they wanted more. They gave up more picks than they would have for Bourne. So Bourne doesn't get to do that. In the process of waiting to hear, whether he's on the roster or going to Minnesota yesterday during cutdown day, he was also approached about a pay cut, which you can imagine for a guy who signed for 3 years, $19.5 million, only $5.5 million of which was guaranteed, wasn't too thrilled about. It's unclear to me so far whether that pay cut that the Patriots did approach Bourne about was to facilitate a trade with the Vikings or just to say, hey, if you take a little bit of less money, we'll keep you on the roster or maybe we'll put you on IR and then you can come back, week 5 or whenever you're ready. But the trade talks with the Vikings until yesterday, and maybe even earlier this morning, were complicated by the fact that Kendrick Bourne not only has had a bad training camp, we'll get to that, but he was hurt for basically all of it. This was a foot sprain he suffered, you'll remember, Friday night in stadium practice, and we reported on it. It was a foot sprain. Okay, expected to take 3 to 4 weeks to heal, and that's exactly what it did. The information the team was willing to give up, though, about his status was a little cloudy, so that made talks a little bit harder. And so because Bourne makes the 53 yesterday, when obviously the trade doesn't go through, it seems to reflect that he had returned to health. And I can tell you, indeed, he expected to practice today. Okay. So despite having that bad training camp, despite being on the bubble, deservedly so, it's probably their 7th best option based on what happened on the field, there was some hope that he would turn it around because what he did show this summer was a lot of reps with the second team offense, very few with the starting group, and he only caught 2 passes, all of 2 from Drake Maye in team drills. And this is partly why we keep track of that crap, right? Because you want to know who Drake Maye is turning to at a time when he's only going to play a couple of series in the preseason. So in training camp, who's he working with? Who do the coaches like? Who do the quarterback likes? Because that plays a big role here. Kendrick Bourne didn't see a whole lot of time with Drake Maye. And when he did, he only caught 2 passes, the second of which led to the foot sprain. So again, the biggest piece of this is his play on the field. It was not good enough. Bourne did not make them an offer that they couldn't refuse. You can make a case that keeping Bourne might be wise when you're relying heavily on a guy who also has an ACL, more recently, Stephon Diggs, and maybe some questions about off-field stuff, which so far, no misdemeanors, no felonies. We're not making a big deal of this, but you have to keep in mind, as well as some younger players, and honestly, guys who are probably going to get hurt. Do you want to keep that seventh receiver, especially if he's not contributing on special teams? Probably not, but there were considerations here. The bottom line is he's gone. It was not good enough. This is a guy who had been on the trade block basically the last 3 years after having a career year in 2021, 800 yards, 55 catches. I think it was 5 touchdowns with McDaniels. The hope for this bounce back, now a year removed from the ACL, and with the offensive coordinator who gave him his best season yet, never came to fruition. It didn't happen. So he expected to go elsewhere. Patriots sounded like they were going to get probably a 7th for Kendrick Bourne. Didn't happen. Now, Kyle Duggar, though, is still here. And Kyle Duggar's situation came down to the wire. I have a good grasp on this, as well as from the team side and the player side. This came down in the last 30 minutes yesterday. And following the last 2 to 3 weeks, when I'm reporting for the Herald, and we're talking about here on the show, Patriots would really like to get off of Kyle Duggar's contract. Anthony Jennings, they would also like to get off of too. Both sides were surprised that it got to this point, that Kyle Duggar was informed, hey, you're going to be on the roster. But that's not a guarantee through the whole entire season. Patriots had trade talks with multiple teams, can't confirm. Not all got close. Most of them did not get close because of the contract. Again, 4 years, $58 million, signed last year with good guarantees, another Eliot Wolf masterstroke. There was one team that got closer than the rest with Duggar, but the issue is how much money the Patriots were willing to eat in that contract, because they go, this is not worth that. This guy's 29. He looks slow. He's admitting to having issues with the change in the system. If he comes here and there's a whole new defense to learn, what's that going to look like? Probably like what we see in the preseason. And so, look, they didn't bridge that gap, and you could yell and scream about the Patriots being cheap and not wanting to eat that money, like the simple cynics and the contrived contrarians on the radio. Fine. Just like Bourne, though, Duggar has had a pretty bad last 11, 12 months. Okay. Part of it is a serious ankle injury, which he played on from October through December last year, high ankle sprain that was misdiagnosed. But when you lose explosion and you're not a particularly fast player to begin with, that's a problem. He did look a little bit better. We all saw it against the Giants for stretches and in practices, but he's on the scout team. Guys on the scout team, late August, typically don't make the team. Now, because of his history, though, is a guy who prior to last year, super productive. You could see Pro Bowl potential. Guy scored 3 touchdowns in 2022, which granted, it's a long time ago. But they decide to keep, instead of eating all of the money, and this is the part that I get, and when not aligned with the cynics on the contract and the money, et cetera, is like, I don't want to just pay $10 million for Kyle Duggar to get a ticket out of town. If I'm going to pay something or someone money, it should be for them to provide a service and be on the roster. Not to mention, as we said at the beginning, teams at this stage of a rebuild don't have many better options. So, okay, he's overpaid. So he looks a little bit slow. So things are not really great with him in the team. Keep him. Hope that it gets better, because it has gotten better. But he's only here because they could not make the deal in the same way they could not make a deal to get Kendrick Bourne to Minnesota. Is it likely that Kyle Duggar finds his form? Probably not. But again, you'd rather keep a guy who's good in the locker room, is going to work his ass off, has had multiple interceptions as I've talked with him just from film study, and not just like, oh, they threw this last week, they'll probably do it again. He's talking about plays, I'll tell you, when they're in Cleveland in 2022, that the Browns had not run yet that season. And this was week 5. This was like the early stages of Zappy fever. Okay. They go in and they win big. And they ran a play in the first drive that he picked off. They had not run all year. He had watched tape from the season before to go get that. Guys like that, even if he's watching tape to help a Craig Woodson or a Jalen Hawkins or a Del Pettis, who also made the team, is someone you want to keep around, at least for now. But again, no guarantees he sticks through the season. One more note. I think the last 11 months have kind of taken a toll on Kyle Duggar. And this goes back again to the high ankle sprain, playing on that. It goes to a recovery that he told me on the record was only going to take 4 months. And then in May, when Vrabel is here and vibes are high and you're running a new defense, he still can't practice. June comes with the mini camp, still can't practice. And now you're dealing with declining play and being on the trade block. So if it ever came to a change of scenery, I personally don't think he would object. because of everything that's gone on. And you could even go back to the fact they also just lost a ton of games last year, which it'll be better this season. Don't get me wrong, but it's a lot for a player to go through and what basically has been all downhill since he signed that extension, which ironically enough is the one thing that's pretty much anchoring him here to New England. All right, a hard pivot really quickly to Jakobi Meyers. Then we get Tommy Curran coming up, state of the team. Great conversation. We talk about Drake Maye, Eliot Wolf, Vrabel, the roster. This was this morning, though, so you're not going to get any of the Duggar talk. No Bourne news because that hadn't happened yet, and everything we've just covered. But since I have not talked about Jakobi Meyers requesting a trade out of Vegas, we're going to do that right now. Don't get your hopes up. Based on the reporting, nothing to do with me or the Patriots. The Raiders have no inclination to trade him. Now, this is step one in handling a trade request because even if you actually want to keep the player, or excuse me, if you don't want to keep the player, you express that you do because it drives up the price of people who might come calling. Adam Schefter claimed there was only one team that came and called the Raiders. I don't know if I buy one. Okay, there's probably a couple of more. But Meyers is going to turn 29 soon. He is in the last year of his contract. He wants a big new extension. And I can tell you the Patriots see his skill set, frankly, is overlapping a lot with the guys that they have. And nobody enjoyed the Jakobi Meyers experience as a guy who was smart, tough, and was their leading receiver for a number of years. Their leading receiver, by the way, over the last 5 years, meaning no player on planet Earth has had more receiving yards for the Patriots since the start of the 2020 season than Jakobi Meyers, who's not been here for the last 2 years. Anyway, because of that overlapping skill set, the cost of whatever new contract he's going to get, I'm not going to guess. We'll have to see. But the guy had 1,000 yards last year and 87 catches playing with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Okay. They would rather roll with the guys they got. They're very happy with Kayshon Boutte. Very, very, very happy with Kayshon Boutte. Matt Collins has exceeded expectations. Demario Douglas has been better than all of those receivers combined, which brings us to Stephon Diggs, who, look, I said on TV Monday night, and it blew the eyebrows off of Michael Holley, this feels like a wash right now with the guy that I've been watching, meaning Stephon Diggs in training camp and the Jakobi Meyers that you see in Vegas. Solid number twos. Diggs will get better. There's a process of recovering and knocking off rust with the ACL, and you can see at times maybe he's holding back a little. So I expect Diggs to be better than what he is now. But you're not swinging a big trade for another number two, another guy who plays in the slot, and frankly doesn't take the top off of the defenses, which there's only one player now who can do that, and it's Kyle Williams. I said one more thing, I think, earlier, but that was a lie. This is the final thing, and I got to get this off my chest. And again, Tommy Curran coming up very shortly, so stick around. I saw this a couple times yesterday, and even from at least one person in the media, written, tweeted, I don't know. And we're all rushing around. We're tired. Like, cut down day's a lot. What I saw was a comparison between Javon Baker, who initially made the 53-man roster and is now off, to Matthew Slater. Can we never, ever compare those two again in the same breath, please? Even their roles as gunners. Matthew Slater is the greatest non-scoring special teams player in NFL history. Whether or not he gets into Canton, he should be a Pro Football Hall of Famer because he is a 10-time Pro Bowler. He is a 2-time All-Pro. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion and one of the greatest leaders and human beings to ever set foot in Foxborough, period. Okay? Baker played gunner for 3 preseason games against guys who mostly are no longer even in the league days later. That's it. There are so many steps that were skipped, thousands of them, between what Baker did and what Matthew Slater was and accomplished and achieved and stretched. Okay, so the comparison it's not even remotely close. Okay, like this is anyway. It appeared Baker made the team. This is why we said we waited yesterday. He's off the team, did not deserve it. Mike Vrabel said he has to do more as a receiver. That's who he's got to be. It's not going to be special teams only. And he'll come back, and I think there's potential there, and they'll have to develop out of it. But look, just relax. Keep the respect on Matt Slater's name and no more comparisons with a 4th-round rookie who has 1 career reception and just started to play gunner. All right, that's it for me. Here comes Tommy Curran with a little peek ahead to week 1 and covering all of the people you want to hear. And if you're not a big fan of Eliot Wolf, I got to say, you're going to really love the middle of this episode. But first, a quick break. My guy and yours, Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston now with us, coming off a cutdown day. And more importantly, a delicious breakfast sangy. Can you tell us about this sandwich?
It was good. I was pretty hungry, and I haven't seen my people at the Dunkin' Donuts that I usually go to. I've been going a different way to a morning event, and I hadn't seen them, and they were, "Where have you been?" So it was nice to catch up with them. We had the sourdough breakfast sandwich from Dunkies, and the loaded potato hash browns. And I put an extra little bit of mozzarella, buffalo mozzarella on it when I came home, put it in for 35 seconds, melted it a little bit, salt and pepper. I feel great, top of the world.
My man, that's a lot of vet moves in there. 35 seconds is not, most people would just slam that plus 30-second button on the microwave and be done. You go, that extra 5 gets me to a
I
different place.
did. And, it takes a little more time, especially when it's on a sourdough, because you get 2 fried eggs on a sourdough as opposed to a baked, sausage, egg, and cheese. You get 1. So it's good, some good bang for your buck. But because of that extra density in the microwave, it's not going to melt as quickly for you. So probably could have gone as high as 45, but I didn't want to get my sourdough toast completely soggy.
This is why we have you on. So things I just would never think about. There's something that hit me the other week when I had people tweeting at me. Jordan Schultz more or less echoed my report 3 hours later without credit. Was like, "Oh, you must be a Dunkin' guy." And I'm sitting here going, I've lived in Massachusetts now 8 years, New England basically my whole life. I've never committed one way or another to Starbucks, where Jordan Schultz is from, versus a Dunkin'. Have you ever flip-flopped, or you've just always tried?
Never in my friggin' life.
Okay.
It's funny when Vrabel and Brewski, when they were players, used to bust my balls all the time about always carrying a Dunkin'. And when I saw Vrabel coming back, he's like, get your Dunkin' still, because I'd always just walk around the locker room like this.
Yeah. Still do.
You get your Dunkin'.
There's something about that. I started to do tea a couple years ago, seeing you. I was like, there's a different feel to being the guy walking in with the hot beverage. You're just, you're in a good place. Chit-chatting with guys in there.
And it gets cool in there. You get to keep your hands nice and warm.
Yeah. All right. You did TV, I assume, yesterday, yeah?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. What was your big Tommy takeaway from Cutdown Day?
I think the overarching feeling I get, Andrew, is it's not a really good roster. I feel like there's a lot of placeholder players on this roster. Jack Westover is your third tight end, for instance, or Marte Mapu in your linebacker room as a converted guy. Really, the tackle depth as well. If anything happens to Will Campbell, Vidarian Lowe's back on the field, and we've seen certainly plenty of occasions in which Vidarian Lowe was a sub-NFL level player. Wonderful man. Has some tough days. So I look at the roster and you see 8 wide receivers and you say, well, why? Do they have a combination of the 1983 Chargers and the 1989 Niners out there? You can't let any of them go? No, you don't. They're all, you have the flip side. You have to, by volume, try and cover your bases. Maybe one of them works out. So those are that's the main thing that really jumps out, aside from the positional stuff, is they're just not good. And when we talk about the improvement that we presume, that's if everything works out as we think it's going to, it's going to be it should be a team that hovers around, maybe even nudges over 500. But that's kind of best case scenario stuff.
Yeah. Yesterday felt like, to me, after months of, I think, mostly deserved hype, Vrabel, Maye, McDaniels, the whole lot, all the fresh faces coming in, like someone slowly turned off the anti-gravity machine we were all living in and just floating around. Look at this. We're back. The Patriots are competitive. This should be fun. They got a quarterback and a coach. And then the roster cuts come in and you're like, in a way that I think is fair, because we want to be grounded in our analysis. And I think fans, their expectations should be based in reality, as all of ours should. And I referenced this in my column this morning. Like, Vegas still has them at 8.5 wins, because sports books are now our governor for all expectations in sports. But the point being, like, they have 15 players on this roster from all of their drafts before last April. They have 11 rookies to match those guys. So there's only so much turnover you can have and removal of the rot before you go, we don't have enough guys to replace
26 of the players. So 26 of the 53 are first or second year players?
No. So what I'm talking about is when you consider every player drafted from 2024 to 1960, there are only 15 players left from all those draft classes. Granted, no one's here from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or even before 2020. But you have almost as many players they added in April and May as Mike Vrabel kept from the previous regimes that were drafted here. Homegrown guys.
Okay.
Which is all what we know is you can't make enough chicken salad when you don't even have enough lettuce to kind of scrounge around to make this go. And that to me says as much about like Vrabel's remaking of the program is still very much a work in progress. Like this is still a rebuild, and we all just got a reminder.
Yeah, we really do. Trenny asked at one point when we were on early edition, is this, were they damaged? Were they irreparably harmed by the drafts of the last couple of years? I said, they've been irreparably harmed by the drafts since 2013. It's 12 years of bad drafting. Your Dominic Easleys and your Malcolm Browns and Jordan Richards and, 0 for 2016. Yes, you can bring out a Joe Tooney and a Shaq Mason, and that's great, but you got to hit on some of them, and those are third-round picks. We all know the litany, but it's profoundly, distressingly bad. You could probably put it up against virtually any team over the course of history for a 12-year draft period. I mean, they took a first-round wide receiver who couldn't make the team. They just cut a first-round guard. They had a first-round quarterback whose ass got chased out of town after 3 years. It's irreparably harmed. It's not going to take one decent draft and Travion Henderson to go, they're back.
What do you think Vrabel makes of this roster?
That a lot of it is still going to continue to churn. It's, I was talking to somebody a few months ago, and they said, how many of these players are going to be here in 3 years that they had signed? Diggs, Moses, would Duggar be here? Stevenson? These guys aren't going to be here either. Their best players aren't going to be here. Hunter Henry, will he be here in 3 years? I mean, that's kind of a stretch.
Frankly.
So it's Onwenu, probably not. It's really amazing. So that's I can't remember what you asked me. Oh, what do I think Vrabel makes of it? I think Vrabel looks at it and goes, my God, thank God we have a small core of players. We think we might. Milton Williams is young enough. Maybe we get through to Barmore, and that's good. We got Gonzalez over there. Going to have to pay him a shitload soon, but we will. We're going to have to reinvigorate that safety group, but at least we got Woodson. I mean, he must look at it and say, who can I put a little flag on and say, we're keeping this, like, when you're moving and you tag different things. Yeah. We'll keep this.
Yeah. It feels like there's, the path we've all been talking about, playoffs and this and
I'm
that.
the king of the pregnant pause, so I'm sorry. You never know.
No, it's okay. I just think what he's saying, and I think you're getting at, is, okay, the best version of this team is so dependent on great health. Like, not good health. Like that safety room even. You lose a Jalen Hawkins or Craig Woodson, who might not even be able to survive the season because one has been a journeyman. The other one's a fourth-round rookie, and those guys typically have growing pains or just flat-out bad games. Like, you need the best of those guys to get the best of this team. So I think when he said Monday on EEI, I think this was way overlooked as a comment. They have to go to, quote, great lengths to really fix this roster and upgrade it. That reminded everyone, and not only where they are, but like what his vision is, that this is year one of a multi-year process here. Do you want any parting shots? Because no one's better at this, at either Eliot Wolf and Bill Belichick for the drafts of the last few years, because we all know it, but I think sometimes it deserves a reminder. Okay, the drafts have been bad. No, they've been horrid.
I just don't know how you skate. If you're a Wolf and you're sitting in those meetings, you're like that, I think you should leave guy, where they're like, all right, we have to get rid of this guy. We might have to get rid of Layden Robinson. We're going to get rid of Caden Wallace. No, we'll keep him. We'll get rid of Strange. And Elliot's probably sitting going, looks like none of those guys can play. We're all looking for the guy who did this. Yeah, I mean, it's astounding. His involvement, Elliott's, since 2021, that's when it was first celebrated by Robert Kraft that, I've been down there and it looks very collaborative. Everybody's working and making great progress. And we all wrote, wow, good draft. The first two guys seem like players. You got Mac Jones and Christian Barmore. You went chalk for fools, and it looks like it's going to work out. But 2022, they said, you know what? Josh is gone. Let's change the entire offense and draft Pete Strong and Cole Strange and Tyquan Thornton, because as Matt Gross said, if you want fast guys, you got to draft guys who run fast. And those guys have just skated. And I don't know if it's because they have some other ability within the framework of the team that's going to make them relevant. You have a better understanding of the upsides perceived about Eliot Wolf. I think he feels to me like an interloper of the highest degree.
Yeah, I can speak much better to his role and impact and involvement really before he got the job than I have since then. But what he's
Yeah,
done since then is obvious to everyone. You know what I mean? Like that was part of the profile and the background of the understanding. But they've tried to close ranks in a way that frankly I don't think has been helpful, because if they want to control any kind of messaging, they should be open about, oh, this is what happened here and this would happen there. And I think frankly, you tell me if this is fair. I think he's primarily here because of his relationship with ownership, and to partly be eyes and ears for what's going on now in that front office because of how long they were shut out when Bill was here.
I think that's fairly perceptive. I don't know that to be the case, but if I'm Mike Vrabel, I would not want to come in to a situation, and he really acknowledged this too in his introductory press conferences and interviews. I wouldn't be here if I didn't feel comfortable with the structure. So I don't want a holdover if I'm Mike Vrabel and I'm a sought after coach, which he sure as shit was going to be, and I'm a sought after coach and you're going to pay me millions of dollars and you want to foist this team upon me. I don't want a holdover who was a friggin' ne'er-do-well when he was in charge and a blame layer, as Eliot Wolf was, to be the guy who's over me in term, or that I have to check with or say, is he gonna give me a bad review? Because it's very hard for me to see. And he's probably a wonderful guy, maybe a great dad, great kids, gives to all kinds of charities. But I'm just talking, he's a very public job, and it's a public interest. It's, as the Crafts often say, what do they call it? They're like caretakers or benefactors.
Yeah, of a public trust, like as the franchise.
Public trust.
Yeah,
so fans have a stake in this. And for someone to do their job that poorly and to undermine the public trust in this particular entertainment entity that people take very personally, your performance reflects on something. You don't just get to skate. You can't be that bad at something and not have a ramification. And that's why, to me, it's mystifying why he would get to skate. If it's just the contract, if it's just what he's under contract for this year, and you don't want to be paying guys to sit at home, and he does have some ideas in terms of scouting, then that's fine. But I did not like his comments last year at the end of the year to Henry McKenna. I don't like what he's alluded to in terms of, now we know what the coaching staff has in mind for what it wants.
The vision.
I don't like what's been intimated. Oh, Eliot was stretched so thin. Who the frig was stretching him thin when he decided Chooks Okorafor was a friggin' tackle? He had nothing but time on his hands.
That's good. That's good. It's all fair. And I've straddled the line between the things that I've been told by Super Bowl winning GMs, Jason Light, John Schneider out in Seattle, people who have worked with him. Smart guy, as far as I know, probably does donate to a charity or two. But we don't care about that right now. We care about his impact on the personnel. The other thing that strikes me about him, and this relates more to yesterday, is the idea of, okay, are you a deal maker? Can you get things done under pressure? Because, the Ayuk thing, you could excuse him. Ayuk didn't want to come here, just use the Patriots as leverage against the Niners, whom he obviously stayed with. There's not a whole lot of evidence outside of the Matt Judon trade, which is a nice move, that this is a guy who has presence. And that was also part of the knock that I heard in researching that profile, that can kind of run a room, which I think partly is probably why Vrabel felt comfortable coming in, knowing I'm the alpha when I walk in there. And it's not just because I'm the new guy. It's because of who I am as a person and who he is. So I'll take whatever insights and backgrounds and connection he has. But the point about the negotiation, as I understand it, they were close with one team in Kyle Duggar trade talks and couldn't get across the finish line because they didn't want to eat as much money as they would have had to. What do you make of that?
That he's not a good player. I don't hold them responsible for deals not made because I think they're dealing from a shit hand. I think that they have a really difficult time selling any of their players to anybody. Now, deals made on draft day, for instance, to trade down in the second round and take Polk and move away from, I keep wanting to say Lad McConkey, but it's not. It's Luke McCaffrey.
It is Lad McConkey. You got it. Lad McConkey.
That's every time. Those idiots.
Suspicious name. Yeah.
Well, where do you see what happens in 20 years to your command?
Yeah,
I'm telling you. But so those are the moves that were easy to make. I think it's and he blew them. The Judon thing wasn't an easy move, but it's an outlier.
All right, I know we did it again. We took a break. We're talking about the Patriots, something you don't want to do ahead of what should be a very exciting season. But I got to tell you, even if you are the most optimistic Patriots fan listening to this podcast, there is another breakout candidate I want you to watch, and that is you. Yes, yourself, but only if you play, and only if you play over at Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. This is something that I have played and talked to you about for baseball season, for basketball season, college football season. I think is going to be dabbling. I will avoid the NFL, but you can use all the information you get here to win real money over at Prize Picks. And I'm talking about Travion Henderson's breakout season. We're talking about Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, whomever you think the Patriots, or I think the Patriots are going to feature on Sundays. You can use that information to go play over at Prize Picks. This is how simple it is. All you need to do is pick between 2 and 6 player stat projections. Prize Picks gives you the players, they give you the stats. All you have to do is pick more or less on each of those stat projections, and boom, just like that, you filled out a lineup. If your picks are correct, you could cash in up to 2,000 times your money. Again, I've done this watching the Red Sox games, Celtics games on occasion, Bruins if I'm feeling a little bit bored. We know no one's going to be bored through the middle of February because football is here. And if you want to win with the Patriots or just win on your own, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineup after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50, 50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
But to me, can you extract Jakobi Meyers if you wanted to? Yeah, you probably could. You send him a third, and you decide you're going to give Jakobi maybe $20 million a year, twice as much as he's making, and a third less than what most 1,000-yard or 1,500-yard receivers make. I think he has the right to feel that he's an $18 to $22 million a year receiver. So I would try and extract that. And if you say, well, he's redundant, which I think you have, and that's rightly, it's a very good perspective, and I agree with the notion of it. But send him Diggs. Here, you take Diggs, we'll take Jakobi, and we're going to give him the money that he wants. Thoughts on that?
Well, yeah. So I want to ask you because and I could say this as a fellow bald man. Whatever hair Michael Holley had left on his head Monday night when we were doing BST, and I said, right now, the player I see at camp wearing a number 8 jersey, Stephon Diggs, would be a wash with what I know Jakobi Meyers is right now. I think
100%.
Yeah, okay, good. Because it blew his mind. And I said, I understand their reputation. I understand their career resumes are not remotely close. And the player at his peak, Stephon Diggs at 31 versus Jakobi Meyers at 28, there's still a gap there. But the player you and I have watched in practice is about Jakobi Meyers already, yeah?
Absolutely. Jakobi Meyers is better than Stephon Diggs at this point in terms of what he's putting on the field. Stephon Diggs is not a downfield threat. Neither is Jakobi Meyers, but the resume over the last 3 seasons certainly does measure up. He's not a touchdown maker, but he's never been with a touchdown thrower, really. So, yeah, no, I would trade that. I would make that trade straight up in a second, and I would give him the $5 million raise. What is Diggs making? 12 or 14?
It was the bloated numbers were 3 for 69, but those came down to. I'd have to look it up. I can do that here in a second.
Anyway, so I
think it's like going into week 1, what you expect from him. Phil, we know, made some noise the other week with his Diggs comments, but I haven't talked about him a whole lot recently.
What do I expect from Diggs? I expect Diggs to be a 4 to 6 target guy as opposed to being a 10 target guy. As Phil pointed out a couple of days ago when we were sitting in the media room talking about Diggs and Jakobi Meyers, Diggs was seeing 160 targets a year when he was at his height in Buffalo. That's 10 a game. He's probably a 5 a game guy now, so that's probably going to be 80 to 110. But in the Patriots offense, you have to get the ball directed to, I think, Pop Douglas about 120 times. There's only so many throws to go around. So Pop's going to see it about 120. I think Kayshon Boutte is probably going to have a better statistical season than Stephon Diggs. I think that Kayshon Boutte will have a better year than Stephon Diggs. Wrap that one.
Well, we will.
Because at this point, I think that Diggs he's going to attract attention. I haven't loved his hands in camp. And there's never been a day when I said, boy, Kayshon Boutte can't catch stuff. He catches everything. His body control is unbelievable. And his short area quickness and ability to uncover, 0 to 12 yards is excellent. Yes. So he's a way, way, way better player than people think.
Yeah, I put in a large Amazon order of a lot of crow that I'm going to have to devour over the first couple of months of the season if he keeps playing like he did. Because my line on Boutte I just don't get it on Boutte. Like I didn't see it, but he's winning in exactly the way Vrabel wants. Contested catches, against man coverage, red zone, key situation, like 2-minute drills. He's catching at least one pass from Drake Maye. But zooming out, do you feel better or worse about this team than you did a month ago when camp started?
Because Drake Maye is concretely better than he was. And we've spent a lot of time hand-wringing about the limitations and the mistakes, and they're realistically worth lamenting because of the timing of them. Beginning of games, ends of important practices. But he's smarter than he was. His decision-making is quicker. He's not confused. He does seem to be decisive in when he says, you know what, this party's over. At least we're seeing that in practice. He didn't do it in that preseason game. Again, lamentable. But I think Drake Maye's improvement, the improvement of a few different receivers, it's disappointing to see the cornerback situation. It's disappointing to see the linebacker situation. I'm still very wary of the pass rush, very wary of the pass rush. But between Maye, the offensive players, the unavoidable improvement on the offensive line, and the fact that I do think that Mike has gotten the entitlement out of the organization to an extent, as much as you can. Everybody's going to have a feeling of entitlement, or hey, I have a finite amount of time here. How's this going to help me? You have to be like that. But I think those other things make me feel better now that I've seen concrete evidence of those things.
Yeah. All right, real quick. Let's take a peek ahead to week 1. I think this game is fascinating on a lot of levels, but as much as we want it to finally reveal how good the Patriots are, something about Stephon Diggs or Drake Maye, I say this every single year. It is the most anticipated, yet least telling game on the schedule. So they get housed as they did 22 years ago, 31-0 in their opener. It's going to suck those 72 hours that follow, but I'm not going to feel a whole lot different about this team until we get a bigger sample. That said, what is the most intriguing thing about this game to you?
How Drake Maye starts the game, because it's clear now that the starts and the finishes are difficult for him. I'm not saying he's a heady player in terms of getting in his own head, but I'm not saying it. And I asked him about it the other day.
Yeah.
And he gave a pretty good, honest answer about, I got to get some easy ones early. I got to get some layups. And I think that's going to be worth watching. He can't pee down his leg at the beginning of the game. Remember a couple of years ago when they honored Brady and the Eagles were in town at 17-0 before people even found their seats? It's humiliating. It's humiliating, and it pisses people off because they feel like they got a bait and switch, especially the people who drive down there, sit in traffic, get all excited, get ready to have $1,000 day and feel like crap until Wednesday because they just went all in on Sunday and it's 17-0. So people have an expectation, and I think that the fans who show up for the games are always appreciated because they are the amplifier of the region's general mentality.
That's a great point.
So if they piss down their leg at the beginning of the game, people will boo because they're like, Mike, we love you. We're psyched you're here. You're a handsome, big Eastern European son of a gun. But we thought it was going to look better than this, and it doesn't. So that to me is going to be the beginning of the game, and how Drake Maye responds is my most interesting subplot. What about you? Will Campbell, Max Crosby too?
There it is. You know me too well.
Sorry, I hate when people do that to me. They take two. They were asked for one. They take two.
Well, Okay, we won't have you on for another 3 months, which is about our kind of routine here anyway. Your quarterly reports with Tommy Curran. That'll be the punishment for jumping on that. But look, I think there's no way around that, right? I think both teams stare at that matchup. And for the folks who want to go, oh, actually, Max Crosby aligns across the right tackle just as much, if not more, than the left tackle. Fine, great, cool. This is going to be an issue for them because the detractor case for this offense and why you would feel better with you on Maye, with you on the receivers, is I feel worse about this offensive line because you could talk yourself into Morgan Moses, a pillar of professionalism, and he had good PFF grades. He only missed 4 games, and he's tough, and that's true. The guy I watched at camp, not all that impressive. Garrett Bradbury lived up to his PFF reputation. Michael Wenu, good camp, thumbs up. And then the other 2 players are rookies, and rookies, as tough and as athletic and as strong as they might be, struggle in the NFL, and that will be, I don't know if it's a kind of a block in the road where you really can't do anything about it for Josh McDaniels the way he's going to game plan, or it's roadkill that you can kind of drive around and go, oh, it looks a little ugly, but we're still going to get where we want to go. And it could be either one.
I think that Josh is. I think Josh is so good at that shit that maybe he'll in week 1 it'll be exploited, but he'll just we can't do that. We're not doing that next week. He is so good at diagnosing and avoiding issues that are going to be problems. And I think that in the first week, he's been around the league long enough to know how important the first week and the first impression is. He might err on the side of caution and say, we're going to run the ball 38 times today, and we're going to turn this into a rock fight.
Yeah.
And why not? I'm sure the Raiders would embrace that too. I don't know their personnel inside and out, but even though Geno absolutely shredded the Patriots he was terrific last year in week 2. But I would imagine they don't want to say, Geno, go throw it 51 times.
No, I mean, they took Ashton Genty top 10, so you're going to feed your rookie. And Jakobi Meyers trade request reminded me, by the way, he's our number 1. Like, can you name another Raiders receiver? Not to put you on the spot. I had 2, and I feel like I should know more. Trey Tucker and Jack Beck, who's a rookie at a TCU that I like coming out of the draft. That's it. So I think the running game point is a good one. Yeah.
Hunter Renfrow.
Right, last one. You tell me this is crazy very quickly. I've said months ago, and I've seen a little bit this more go around since. I could see a 5-0 start for this team. I could also see an 0-5 start. And the 0-5 start would be a combination of bad luck, bad health, but also the problem we just talked about. Because after the Raiders come into town, they're going to go down to Miami, House of Horrors, Chop Robinson. Like, they actually have a good pass rush still with the Dolphins. TJ Watt comes to town week 3, Carolina, and then Buffalo. Is that crazy? 0-5 or 5-0? Or is it too crazy?
Geez, I think 0-5 would be likelier than 5-0.
Yeah, but still not likely.
They got a better shot at 0-5 than they do 5-0. I don't think. Worst case would be 1-4.
Yeah.
But they have a better shot. Jesus, that's tough. That's really good. I have my little planner here. Into my notes, we've already added, what did I add already? EEI Vrabel on roster. And now I will add 0-5 or 5-0. That's for my pod later.
There you go.
I love it.
Give me a producer credit is all I ask. You know what, though? If they did start like that, we would go from, I use the anti-gravity analogy. If that had another switch to like send us into the ground or keep us on the ground, like imagine how people would feel after this whole offseason of hype and hope and stuff that I fed into and you've talked about. I think has been fair. I would, if this does happen, I will say that Mike Vrabel's AFC Championship team also started 1-4, which they had a quarterback change. That's not going to happen here, but he's dug out of that hole before. Is the point?
Yeah, I mean, the quarter pole just means that quarter pole. I know racing fans sometimes get pissed when you say quarter pole because it's not what you generally think it is. But that first 25% of the season is not going to dictate everything. It just it's the finding out about yourself. I've always said, I've literally always said, and I came to this realization after a few years covering the league, they don't have any idea until Columbus Day. They literally have no idea what they want to be until Columbus Day.
Yep.
So they're just throwing it up there and hoping it works for the first 4 weeks. And if it doesn't, they're just going to keep tweaking, but they're going to keep tweaking even if they're winning. So.
Yep. You got 4 Super Bowl teams that started 2-2 here. So I'm with you. All right, I've kept you way too long. Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. Read him, NBCSportsBoston.com. And you can also find him, of course, early edition, Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. I'm looking forward to this next episode more than most, I got to tell you, knowing what the topics are going to be coming up.
What do we got? This is for Quick Slants. You've been on Quick Slants enough. We got Quick Fire. We got Mac Hollandstown. I thought Mac was good the other day, being on whack job. Drake Maye on trying to stay away from early game F-ups. Age of players. Jimmy Kempsky from down in Philly did a nice, interesting story on the age of players. And he had the Commanders as by far the oldest team in the league. And then the EEI, Vrabel on, we really have to make shit happen with the roster, and they 0-5 or 5-0. So those are 5 items. Plus, I'm going to get Austin Hooper in the locker room today because I really like him. I really find him a fun guy to talk to. So a nice grab-ass interview with some intel from Austin Hooper.
Cool. All right. I'll be hanging out behind Moose or whomever is going to have the camera for that because I'm intrigued. He's got good days and other days he goes, I'm not giving you much, but I think you're going to get something out of him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. All right, buddy.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.